What's up, everybody, and welcome to a special edition, a special episode that is going on the Atlanta Falcons Podcast Network. We are talking to members of the 1998 Atlanta Falcons. For those who don't remember that far back, greatest season in Falcons history. I think that's an undisputed fact.
Yeah, and one of the most memorable NFC Championship games in NFL history.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that.
We're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff. I'm Scott Bair. That's Tori McElhaney. Sitting next to us, Tim Dwight. So thrilled to have you here to kind of take a trip down memory lane, not only to 98, but also about your tenure with the Falcons as a whole, because there were some special moments in 98. I mean, I could talk about 99 for a long time, too.
Right.
Averaged 20.7 yards per reception, which is mind-blowing to
Right.
me. But we're going to get into all that kind of fun stuff with Tim over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. So let's start at the beginning, because you have a unique perspective, right? That in 98, you're from Iowa City, Iowa. You played for Iowa.
For Iowa, yeah.
For Iowa.
Yeah, Iowa.
Yeah,
Iowa.
I mean,
Where's
could have gone to
Does anybody know where
Stanford.
Iowa
What is it? Is it corn
Iowa?
country?
It
Just
is corn
Find
country.
the middle and point to it. Of the
Pretty much. That's it. That's how we find it.
and,
Middle country.
and a fourth round draft pick comes out to Atlanta. So let's just start at the beginning. You know, draft call time. Like, what was your initial anticipation of? I know that the draft is huge now, and maybe wasn't.
I was
quite
pretty big back then.
but
You know, we didn't have as many draft parties, especially if you knew you were going to go second or third or fourth round.
Yeah.
I was actually at a track meet when I got drafted.
were you really?
And I was informed by one of the ladies' track teams. It was during a meet. It was out in Mount Sac, which they had this big track meet out there. And
Which is in California, right?
Yeah, right. So I was sitting kind of around the first day, just hoping to see if I'd be a third round pick or something like that. And third round didn't come. So Sunday shows up. I got to go run a 4x1, and I'm warming up. And this one of the track members on the girls team comes by and goes, "Hey, congratulations! You were just drafted." I'm like, "Oh, really?" So who was who
Where am I
drafted
going?
me? Am I going to Miami or Green Bay? Because they kind of brought me in. Like, no,
Yeah.
you're going to be Atlanta Falcon.
What-
Like Atlanta Falcons. Who's the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons? So I ran my race. I'm standing there, and I was anchoring the 4x1. I'm like, I'm an Atlanta Falcon. Who is coaching the Atlanta Falcons? And then finally I got off the track, and my coach Wazorik's like, "Hey, you're an Atlanta Falcon." I go, "I know. I just found out who's the head coach." He's like, "Dan Reeves." I'm like, "Dan Reeves? Like old school Dan Reeves?" And they're
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, Dan Reeves." So that was back then when you didn't have a lot of cell phones. So I had
What?
to call Dan from a payphone
Oh,
Wow.
God.
at the Mount
God, I
Sac
love
Track
this story.
Stadium.
It's like, hey,
And-
man, what's going on?
I know. It's like, so I'm this Tim Dwight. Hey, Timmy, nice meeting you. Welcome to Atlanta. Here's your new coach. And it was Dan's son-in-law. Oh, come on. I know his name.
The second generation of Dan Reeves.
Yeah, 100%.
Why am I struggling?
I am
Joe
too.
DeCamillis. So
Okay.
Joe D gets on the phone. He's like,
Yes.
"Listen, you son of a you better return the ball for me, because that's why you're coming here." I was like, "Oh man, I thought I was going to be a receiver." And then I get here, and obviously, I got Tony and Terrence here, and I'm like, "There's
Yeah.
no way I'm playing a receiver." So
Yeah.
they brought me to be returner, and kind of took off with that.
Man.
But
Hold
yeah, so no draft party for me. Not even like my family even called me to tell me where I was going. It was one of somebody I didn't even really know.
Just
Okay,
in
well-
a payphone celebrating.
I have an important follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead.
How did the 4x1 go?
Yeah, great question.
I think we got second. I mean,
Well,
not too
Okay.
bad.
Yeah, I mean,
Actually, I don't
like,
even really remember. I think
Mount Sac
Maybe-
is a really prestigious.
Oh, is it?
yeah, it was-
invitational.
yeah,
It's huge.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
pretty good track meet.
Wow. So you
But I don't know if I think they had a couple of heats, so I think we got maybe second or third in the heat.
Yeah.
we
There
weren't
you go.
all that super fast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is
we're
funny.
Iowa.
Right.
So, you get the call and you're like, okay, I'm an Atlanta Falcon. And you move to, I assume, around the Sewanee area.
Oh, yeah, for
yes.
sure.
What
Yeah.
was that kind of moment like to fly into Atlanta and kind of come from Iowa to a place like Atlanta?
Well, I mean, I've only been on an airplane, besides college, a couple times. So flying down here, I got dropped off, I think, at the D concourse.
Okay.
And I didn't know about the train, so I walked all the way down to baggage claim, and there's all the rookies, because we got brought in the next week, because we had a rookie training camp for 3 days right after the draft. And so they're all standing there, all waiting for me. And they're like, "Yo, Dwight, like, where have you been? You're supposed to land like at 45 minutes ago." And I was like, "Well, I kind of walked here from the terminal. And they're like, you're supposed to get on the train, dude. So I walked all the way from the terminal, was late. And I mean, it was a little different than Iowa City. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, big city, lots of people. Even though we were up in Sewanee, we'd come down to Atlanta quite a bit just to kind of, see the nightlife and restaurants and things. But definitely lived by the facility. I mean, back then, even nowadays, they we go over the rule book, and it was $3,500 if you're late to meetings.
Right. That's
You're kidding
the
me.
fine.
I made $5,500 a week for 16 weeks. So I wasn't making very much money, and I'm thinking, oh my God.
That seems like a disproportionate response.
If I'm late to a meeting, like it's going to cost me my game check.
Wow.
So as a rookie, you pretty much lived in the facility.
I mean,
or you live right next to it.
Right.
I mean, it was,
as you should, because I'm not giving up that fine. There's no way,
dude. And you only got paid 17 weeks.
Right.
So you only made money during the fall, and the rest of the time it was like, good luck. I hope you made enough during the season. You didn't spend as much.
Right.
And there's no Uber Eats.
There was no NIL money. There was like no websites. It's just the phone was just starting to take off back then. So you didn't have a lot of avenues to make any extra money. Especially as a third, fourth round pick.
Right. Yeah.
Not
And
too many knocking on your door for Nike deals and cars and all that. Like, who's this guy?
and then so you're coming onto a team that, at least as we saw in '98, is personality plus.
Oh my
right?
gosh! I mean,
in the receiver room, you have Terrence Mathis. They just traded for Tony Martin in June of the same year, like that you got there. Jamal Anderson, all the Ray Buchanan, all these personalities, and you're coming to Atlanta, as a guy trying to prove himself, and you better return the. I won't use the words that Joe probably used, but go return the freaking football.
Yeah. I mean, it was
working into that team.
You're walking into a team of ranging from guys that played 19 years. I mean, Morton Anderson was in his 17th year. Oh my gosh. There was a long snapper who was playing 19 years. Terrence, I think it was his 9th. Tony was in his 10th. Chris was in his 9th. Jamal was in his 6th. Our offensive line was actually fairly young. I mean, Robbie, I think, was in his 4th or 5th year. Whitfield was in his couple years. So we had a pretty younger offensive line. But it was pretty awesome being around vets that kind of took care of you rookies. Because normally everybody's kind of fighting for a job, right? And Terrence and Tony were just wide open with me. I mean, they taught me how to be a wideout because we didn't run the ball. We didn't throw the ball very much at Iowa. We ran quite a bit. So I just blocked the whole time. I'm like, how do you run a post route like that? How did you read that coverage? How you run these option routes? And they were phenomenal. I mean, I just locked onto both those guys the whole year and just learned as much as I could. And then, the way we were playing. I mean, they were 7-9 the year before. I had no idea anything about the Falcons. Yeah. And they come down here and you got a lot of these older coaches. Dan's in his 60s, and just like an older team, and they were decent. And the first day I saw Jamal's legs, I'm like, we're going to have a football team. I think got Cornelius Bennett, he's been around forever, playing defense, and Tuggle and those guys. So it was a special squad. Probably one of the most memorable. I mean, just being your rookie year as well, and going to the Super Bowl, but just the personalities we had, was just it was pretty awesome as a rookie.
It's interesting, but because you talk about like the personalities that y'all have, but even talking to guys and looking back at kind of old footage, this team felt so close. Like it really did feel like y'all all were each other's friends as you're competing even against each other. Is that kind of what it felt in the moment when you talk about how special this group was?
Yeah. I mean, even the receivers room, everybody's, fighting for a spot. I mean, Todd Kitchens and I, and we were kind of like the punt returner, the punt returner guy, at least, him and I, we were battling it off, but him and I got along really well. And it was about, Dan made it all about team. Yeah. And however far we were going to get is about being a team. And it kind of resonated from him all the way down. And we had great guys that were just good guys. I mean, you can kind of see how we are out there. I mean, I was so excited to see the lineup that we have with OJ Santiago. I haven't seen OJ for 20 years. I haven't seen Tony Martin, which I haven't seen Tony today since the day I left here. After the Super Bowl. I mean, it's the last time I saw him 25 years ago.
Wow.
But seeing this list of guys, and then Terrence and I playing 3 years together. He's like my older brother. I mean, it's just we had a special squad, and I think that's why we played so well with each other, and we won so much, is that we cared, and guys were looking out for each other. And our rookie team coming in was a bunch of yahoos, like we always are. But, and we had some guys that played. Elijah Williams, he played quite a bit. He was a corner coming in from Florida. I mean, I was starting. Keith Brookings was playing.
Georgia Tech.
Well,
grad,
then we had Elijah. We had Ephraim Salam. He ended up being our starting right tackle.
Wow,
That's right.
Coming as a rookie, from San Diego State. So and then Bob Hallen, he stuck in. He was I think he was our second round pick.
Yeah,
he played quite a bit for us. And those guys were my blockers on kickoff return.
Got to make sure that
that's a
taken
whole
care of.
other thing. It's a whole other change nowadays. It doesn't even look like kickoff return anymore. It's like just kick the ball in the end zone and you get it to 25.
Yeah,
You're like, wait.
I used to go back into like 9 yards deep into the end zone to return the ball. Because, I didn't get any catches. I had like 4 catches my rookie year. It was Terrence and Tony. So I'm like, hey, I got to do something. So I'm like, I'm backing it up.
And then like by the time you cross the goal line, everybody is like
pretty right there. But I'd kind of catch it on the run. I got to the point where I could catch it on the run. So once I got the ball in my hands, I was rolling.
Yeah, well, looking back at that 1998 NFC Championship game, it was like you were shot out of a rocket. Like you were moving before the ball ever even got to you. And that was something I was fascinated by, just because I geek out over people's running styles, and your running style to me was just like it was almost like, not to give you an ego or anything, but like cheetah-like, where it was just like immediately, this is the direction I'm going in, and here I'm going. Whether you run into me or not, I don't care.
At this next level, you learn to like really kind of not be the tough guy anymore, running like that. But
who gave you the biggest hit?
You always get that question, and I don't even remember.
You don't remember?
It was the Jets. I know it was the Jets, and I ended up blowing out my left MCL.
Yeah.
It was on a kickoff return. And it was one of their safeties and linebackers. I got hit in the thigh and I got blown up in the chest. And I remember running off the field. I thought my fingers were broken.
Yeah.
I'm like, my God, I think my fingers are broken. And then they're like, 3rd down, 11 personnel. And I start running out there and my knees like all flabby. And I'm like, oh my God, I hope I don't have a deep route. And Chandler got knocked out. And so Steve DeBerg's in. And you got this 43-year-old in there. You're like, oh my God. Like, I hope he doesn't throw the ball to me. Like, Steve, my knee. I don't think I'm going to make it. And he's like, well, you got the under route anyway, so just run decent.
Just hobbling
through that.
Yeah.
And then it was trying to cover a punt, and that didn't go out so well.
Oh,
basically grabbed both gunner guys because I was the gunner.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I was the gunner. Because when you're a small guy out there in the gunner, and you got 2 dudes, once they get a hand on you, you're locked down. I mean, you can't get off them, right? And here I am. I'm thinking I got one leg. I'm trying to cover this punt. We're backed up. Just grab them. So I grabbed both of them and pulled them down on me.
It's like, just lay down.
I just laid there.
Just lay down.
And then I got yelled at by the Jets fans all the way out on the cart. You suck.
Oh,
we hope your knee's blown out for the rest of your career. You're like, who are you people? Like, really? If I come back here, I'm going to
show
if
you.
I come back here like in 2006, I'm going to have something
That's
to say
right.
to you guys.
Right.
Let's have a more pleasant memory.
Right, yeah.
Your rookie year, I hope I get the date right. October 4th against the Panthers. You're a rookie.
That was my first one.
Your first kickoff return for a touchdown. As a rookie, special teams coach on the payphone, you better return the freaking ball.
Yeah, right.
Did
Scoreboard.
Boom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that one?
Oh, I mean, it wasn't a really, it was wide open. I mean, I remember getting the ball and running up in there. We had wedge returns back then. So I had, I had John Burrow. He was defensive lineman. He was, what is he, 6'3", 290.
Yeah.
I had Jose Portilla. He was one of our rookie offensive linemen. He was 6'5", 320. Bob Hallen, which was like 6'3", 310, and then Brian Kozlowski, so he was one of our tight ends, and he was like 270. So I basically was like, just get behind these guys and find open, right? Well, I ended up being a little bit late on my catch, and when I got finally there, it was just kind of wide open. I was like, God, this is easy. So I just kind of like maneuvered myself around. Didn't have to juke anybody.
Really?
Just kind of ran through there nice and soft and got around the corner, and that was it. And, I mean, it was just, when you return your first one, and especially when you get out in that open field, it's just like this extra like gear just kind of kicks in, and it's wide open, and the adrenaline just flies through your body. Like it was a pretty special moment. I mean, it was as cool as the Super Bowl one.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool as your first one. And it was at home. And it seemed like I always played well against Carolina. Those next couple of years, I always usually had big plays against Carolina and at the receiver side or returns. But yeah.
You talk about like playing at home in front of the fans, but what I think is so interesting about this 98 team is as the season went on, it felt like the city itself kind of came alive
exploded.
with you guys.
Yeah.
What do you remember most about like that time with this fan base as y'all are stacking wins and getting further and further along in this.
It just got rowdier and rowdier.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Buckhead at that time was like nuts. I mean, you go out like on Monday nights and I mean, people everywhere and they're like, the Falcons, Dirty Birds. I mean, everybody was dialed in to the team.
Yeah.
And it's because I think, you know, we had, like you said, we had so many personalities. With Jam.
Oh, God,
and playing with him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole nother level, right? I mean, he's showbiz to a T.
Yeah.
And it just brought in this whole nother dynamic of just, excitement. The city. I mean, the city just came out of the Olympics, and we just kind of brought that extra momentum from out of that into like football, and just the city ignited. I mean, everywhere you would go, it was like, hey, you guys are sitting down here, you got a free dinner, you know, people yelling at you, wanting autographs.
Wow.
And you're like, hey, this is going to be like this every year.
Yeah.
Like,
this
this
is
is
your rookie season when this is happening
Like,
too.
this is the way your rookie season should be.
Right.
You know, I mean, because we started off hot. I mean, we were 5-1, 5-2, and then we just ripped off 9 straight. And just started rolling.
Like when the momentum built, right? I think you were 6-2, and all of a sudden you don't lose again for months and months and months. And I haven't been in this city that long, but you can see that when you play fun football and you play winning football, everything kind of comes together. And then the Dirty Bird thing, and then it becomes like a national.
That took it like the whole nother step. When that started getting in there.
Who has the best Dirty Bird? Is it Jam?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think he sat there and perfected it for a long time.
Right.
He scored most of the touchdowns,
Exactly,
right? Like OJ kind of started it up in New England. And then Jam kind of took off with it. And he was in the end zone quite a bit.
Right.
You know, so
I was talking to Jam and he
practice.
said something along the lines of Ray Buchanan's looks like a dead pelican. Who had the worst Dirty Bird?
Oh man, I think Chandler tried it like one little time or something like that. And I think that was
don't do
that
it
was
again.
it. Yeah, those quarterbacks not real good dancers. Great golfers.
Yeah,
you know,
Yes.
but the dancing not so well.
Not so
But
much.
not a lot of us tried it. It was kind of like
It was like Jam.
it was
DJ.
Jam,
Yeah.
and maybe Ray did some stuff. Ray would do some stuff like that. But you know, not a lot of us did it.
Right.
I didn't do it. Because I was definitely not at that level.
Right, you're like, I'm a
I was
rookie.
Like, hey, I'm a
Right.
rookie. I'm just gonna go return kicks.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Some punts.
I guess
I'll let the pros
kind of handle all that stuff.
Yeah.
This is a super kind of technical question, but I was looking up some stuff about Terrence Mathis. He's talking about when he scored the game-tying touchdown against the Vikings.
They threw it to him too.
As he tells it, you and he are running post routes, right?
Yeah.
And then he crossed the safety. So
Were
you thinking
we ran the same
maybe
play
I'm
back to back?
Okay.
On that, and it was 4th down and 12. So this is the last play of the game. Obviously, we were behind, and the first time we ran it, I had the point. I took the point twice, and we were thinking about maybe switching it up. I'm like, no, Terrence, I want to run the point. I'll run the crosser. Because I was all about trying to get those guys open.
Yeah, sure.
Because I was fat, I was super fast coming out my rookie year. So I was just all about just scorching through the middle and pulling that safety out. And so the first time we ran it, I think, I don't know if he got hustled or hurried up or not, but we didn't have time to really run the route. And last time it was 4th and down. And I'm like, Terrence, I'm just going to blow through here. And Chris kind of got pushed to the side. He got flushed. And I remember running that thing, and I remember seeing him looking at me, and I'm like, don't throw it. Don't please don't. Because I could feel like there was no like end zone left.
Right.
Yeah.
Plus I was like, God, no. I don't need this ball. Throw it to Terrence. And Terrence we called a Dino route, where it's like a double post move. And Chris moving actually getting flushed to left actually bought up enough time for Terrence to really make his route the way it was and got him wide open and made that throw. And I remember him turning. I remember Chris looking at me, and then he turns away, and I'm like, yes. And then I see the ball get thrown, and then Terrence catch it, and it was like, oh my God, we're going to the Super Bowl, we're going to the Super Bowl, we're going to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Because I knew we were going to win that game after that.
Yeah.
And then they got the ball back with 52 seconds left in regulation, and they kneel on it. They kneel on the ball.
Yeah. Did that shock you in that moment?
You would think, because it's tied, right?
Right,
I mean, you had to go down, and we had to score a touchdown and kick a PAT to tie it up, and you figure they got 52 seconds left. They got Randy Moss and Chris Carter, and Cunningham was playing at a high level, and they just kneeled down.
Wow.
And then they won the toss, and then they thought they were going to definitely win. they all exploded. We won the toss. And
was that the loudest moment of the game, you think, when they won the toss?
I think so. But yes. Definitely was not after we kicked the field goal.
Definitely not. Where were you on the field, or I guess you were probably on the sideline when Gary Anderson missed? And what do you remember thinking in that moment?
I was sitting on the bench, just talking to Ronnie Harris, talking about the game and all that. And like, man, like we got to, I don't know if we're going to, we're not going to win this. They go up by 10. There's not much time left.
There's like 2 minutes or
and
something.
And then we just saw it kicked and it just went wide. And we're like, holy, we're back in the field. Let's go.
Wow.
And then OJ caught a big pass, I think, to start the game off. And I think Ronnie caught a big pass too in that drive, a corner route that took down the sideline, and that got us within the 20-yard line. And then it was Terrence's show.
There's like one shot from the game. I know this because I've watched it a ton going back through this game, and there's one moment where I think Morton Anderson's about to kick the game winner, and you are on the sideline on all hands.
We're all down. Knees. Yeah, we're all down there.
The look on your face, you are just like, dear sweet Lord, and you rock back and you're looking, and then you go back down on your hands and knees. What are you feeling? Like, what is the apprehension of what you're feeling in that moment?
Oh, just everything you built your whole career up to, all the way from junior high to high school to college to, those first 16, 17, 18 games where we played, it's always in that moment. And you're teetering on this emotion of you're going to win or you just lost, and you lost his chance to go to the Super Bowl. And I mean, when he made that kick, right when he kicked it, I mean, he knew it because you can see it, he kicks it and he turns around. And we kind of knew it because we were running off into the field right when he booted it. You could see how straight it was going, and we're just, it was euphoric. Man.
Yeah,
it was one of the greatest feelings I've ever had in my career.
It
was all about the team too, because it took like everybody to play in that game.
100%.
Because we all made plays.
Sure.
That whole game, and Morton made the biggest one.
Yeah.
Is there a moment of that entire day that you look back on and you're like, that's a moment I'll never forget? Maybe it's a conversation that you had with Dan Reeves or something. Like, is there a moment that you're like, you know what, that meant a lot to me, or that's a moment that I will take with me for the rest of my life?
Man, that's a good question.
I know it's hard to pick one
I remember
moment.
talking with Chris on the sideline about winning this game and getting the ball back and being able to go down and win that. And he's kind of looking at me like, yeah, you're crazy. And I'm like, dude, we're going to win this game. We're going to get this football back. We're going to go right down there. We're going to score, because that's what our offense was doing all year. But that kick, I had a big run in the game where I got my head ripped off. And
I was about to say
that was the big moment.
Still missed the call.
I had a run. I had a play in there where I had to do the option against John Randall. And I'm in practice all week going, are you kidding me?
Why?
Why am I doing this? I'm the rookie in this big, NFC Championship game, getting the snap, trying to make a decision either to, and I've never ran the option. So I'm either going to pitch it to Jamal or I'm going to take it. And John went upfield, so I ended up taking it, but it wasn't a big run. But thank God I didn't have to pitch it. And I think I was going to I can't remember if I was going to the left or right. I think I was going to the
I think you're going to the right.
I think I was going to the right. And I'm like, why are we putting this play in? This is the stupidest play, and I'm not a quarterback.
It's like he's a future Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's when John wore, he had the all black on, and
right?
One of the strongest guys in the league, and here I'm 170 pounds. It's just gonna get torn up. But yeah.
A couple more questions before we wrap up, because we're almost against time here. I'd be remiss if we all know that the Super Bowl didn't go the way that you guys wanted, and it's all about the team, right? But can we at least mention the second most kickoff return yards in Super Bowl history? I know that you guys are down in that moment, but you returned a kick in this freaking Super Bowl.
Fourth quarter, kind of game out of the way, but special moment.
Yeah, I mean, like that moment for you, again, it's all about the team, and you leave disappointed, but that individual moment must really stand out to you.
That was my career moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I had
millions and millions of people watching that thing.
It's a Super Bowl, and it's a big play, going to that game, we felt that we had a pretty good chance of taking one back. I mean, even the first one, we won the toss, and I mean, if I could have scooted through the middle just a little bit better, maybe made a move on, the safety, I could have maybe took that one, the first one. But we just felt we had a good opportunity for this team to pop one. I mean, every game we felt that because I had meat in front of me.
Right,
I had
yeah.
bulldozer.
Yeah.
And every kickoff we kept getting further and further. And the one before that, I ended up popping out to the outside, and their backside safety ended up pushing me out of bounds. And I turned to him. I'm like, I'm taking this next one back on you.
You told him that.
And he's like, whatever, man. And I'm like, all right. And then so it's kind of the same return. It was wedge right. And I was just a little more patient on finding that hole. And I popped out to the right side again, and he came over the top. And I was like, And I just shook underneath him. And then, there you are in the Super Bowl at midfield, and there's the kicker, Jason Elam, right?
And you can't let him stop
God
you.
forbid I'm getting tackled at the center field in the Super Bowl. So I didn't really have to juke him. I just kind of ran around him. And then Elijah Williams came in from behind me and kind of shielded off a guy that maybe could have got me. And then after that, it was, tiptoeing backwards,
Right.
into the end zone.
It just seems like
Going, we can still win this game.
let's go.
Let's go.
Let's do this thing. Stranger things have happened.
I'm keeping this ball, dude. That was the other. That was
Yeah,
the other.
where's the ball now?
Oh, it's hidden.
Oh, it is.
Lockdown.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
If
in a
he
little
told us, he'd
case,
have
but
to.
it's not up. All my stuff is like buried still right now. I haven't made my room yet.
Yeah.
I think that's
One
when you
day.
have kids, then you start making your room. So I just
Yeah.
had a kid a couple years ago. So I'm going to have a
You'll have a room. Yeah.
eventually, but most of my stuff's all buried still.
Yeah. So, you
So
know.
jersey, ball.
So like Youngin can know
Hey, my dad was
exactly
cool.
what
Yeah.
dad was doing.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to talk as much about your other 2 years in Atlanta as I would have liked, but
Those are tough years,
they were tough years,
but
but
evolving years.
Yeah.
right. But from a personal perspective, like as a receiver, 99 was a really good year
Yeah.
for you. 2000 was another kind of strong overall season. Then you end up getting traded to San Diego. But if you think about the start of your career and then the fact that you get drafted in 98, you're playing till 07, right? Like that's a long, productive career where you made an impact. I'm from San Diego. You made a huge impact in San Diego and other places. Those 3 years in Atlanta, as you look back on your career as a whole, like what did they mean to you, maybe individually, and obviously that 98 season, as a group?
Well, growing into being a professional, I mean, being around the older guys in the locker room helped out a ton. I remember I always say, you can't make the tub or the club if you're in the tub. Archambault told me that one day when I was Lester did when I was hanging out in the cold tub because I had a bad SI joint that was affecting me and I couldn't really run around for about a week. And he's like, "Yo, you better get out of the tub because you ain't making the club." I'm like, I like that, So that 2 days later, I was out of the tub, man. I was feeling great. But no, it's kind of like growing into my growth as a receiver. Cause like I said, in Iowa, I had like 39 catches my senior year. I mean, that's what most people have now in the first like 5-6 games cause everybody throws the ball. Right. But it was, the growth of becoming a professional and like learning your craft and your trade and taking it on, like it wasn't as big a wow as it was, as a rookie. It was more like, all right, now you need to stay in this league.
Yeah.
You need to like step it up and become a wideout. And, having Tony, we missed not having Tony back that next year because he was such a huge, asset in our offense. I mean, you talk about a guy. I mean, Terrence runs amazing routes, but Tony would run routes like whispers. I mean, he was so smooth out there, man. He's just like,
wow.
He was amazing. He run this 3 route. They'd have the stick post and this 3 route that him and Chris just had on a dial, and they would just sit there and just play around with the DBs all day, and they would call their own routes, like there'd be a play call, but him and Chris would just sit there and be like, just signal each other, just boom, boom, boom. Yeah. And then, they had a lot of deep balls that year. I mean, both of them only had like 60 some receptions, but they both had over 1,000 yards.
Right.
So like bombs,
Yeah.
But yeah, getting that, and then Chris Callaway came in and he was our ex. And then he got injured that second half of the year, and that's when I kind of stepped in and played. Right. So, I only had 32 receptions that year. I mean, I had a lot of yards. I caught a lot of deep balls.
Right.
I mean, being a fast guy.
A lot of touchdowns.
A lot of touchdowns. I've always been like a big player. Always made big plays in college and high school, and it just kind of like follows you in your career. And had a great chance to to play with, Terrence, and one of the greatest receivers of all time to the league, and learned a lot from him, and just kind of like rubbed off on me that year, because that was kind of like my coming out year a little bit.
Right.
And then the third year was decent.
Yeah.
I mean, I moved back down to the slot receiver spot with Sean Jefferson coming in.
Right.
Because he had a long time career. Sean was great. He was a fast dude too, man, and super great guy.
Yeah.
I mean, man, down to earth. When one of the first wide receivers that actually I knew that actually hunted. Like, he was a big hunter. It's like,
Really?
TD, you want to go out and hunt with me with these shotguns? You're my, all right? I'm like, nah, Sean, I'm good. I'm good. I'm a fisherman now, but yeah, he loved to hunt. He always talked about his hunting trips and stuff. But Sean was great. And then I got traded. So Atlanta was it's always been in my heart, even though San Diego played a lot of years there and had a lot of good history there. Atlanta's always been the one place where, I mean, it's your first spot.
Yeah.
And the Super Bowl and all these guys that we met on this team and how special it was. It's and it was a place where I kind of grew up a little bit and became a pro.
Wow. This was
Fantastic.
freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Tim Dwight, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for
Hoping it was
subscribing.
entertaining, folks.
Yeah.
It was. I enjoyed it immensely.
You guys got
immensely.
great jobs. I mean, this has got to be super fun for you.
Yeah.
Sitting there and talking to professional athletes.
Yeah.
Talking
You'll
about
hear no
football for a
complaints.
living. No.
No complaints
you
from
walk
me.
into the studio here.
Yeah.
All the fans are out there behind the gates. You guys come right in. You
Where
got
it's
access to all the
air-conditioned.
players. You
Yeah.
go work. Can you hit the weight room down here? Can you do that?
When they're not in there.
can
During
do
the
that.
offseason. See?
Jeez.
Can't
Yeah.
beat that. Tim, thank you so much for the time, and stay tuned for more guests and stars from that 1998 Atlanta Falcons football team. Stay tuned for that. It's coming up real soon. See ya.